when he goes to the doctor and it's Thomas Lennon.
Oh yeah. And you're just like, what?
You're like, hey, what you doing? You're Lieutenant Dangle. What are you doing here, man? This is a serious movie.
Yeah, and he's like, well, we can go ahead and get those legs picked up. And you're like, what the heck? Like, this isn't a comedy movie. Why are you in this? The preview was the first time I had been in the actual theater. So seeing that was weird, but it was good to see a preview for the Green Knight.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem, I know it's a retelling of a story, but it doesn't seem like another one of these kind of movies. Like, it seems like an original type fantasy story, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Which I don't really know the premise of it. I just know it's the Green Knight, which is similar to the Dark Knight, I guess, in a sense, because it's a Batman episode.
Yeah, man, what are we doing?
So we had talked about, movies coming out and everything like that. It's kind of a wasteland at the moment. Suicide Squad did come out today, which I think we're going to be watching that for the next time we do it. Yep. But with just the barren wasteland of terrible summer drought movies, you and I talked about, doing deep dives into movies that we both love. And one of the ones that we talked about was doing a trilogy bonus feature for the Dark Knight. So yes. Batman Begins, The Dark Knight Rises, all part of the Nolan trilogy. So just, talking about that and not necessarily rating it. I guess we could rate each movie in a ranking system. Of course, we probably know the answer, but just how much we love these movies, how much I love Batman, because next to Star Wars and Marvel, Batman is just like the bee's knees for me. So
yeah, I've kind of
awesome.
I feel like the same way. People say, Marvel versus DC or whatever. To me, the very tip top is Batman, and then most Marvel, and then DC kind of picks back up.
Yeah, at the very bottom.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some Marvel stuff I don't care for, and there's some DC stuff that I actually really do like. Not recently, outside of Wonder Woman, but there is some good stuff there. So
it's like if you ask me my favorite franchise, Marvel is better than DC, but if you ask me favorite superhero, it's Batman, hands down. So
yeah, for sure. So what? It had been a while for me, honestly, kind of rewatching these, because I watched. Let's be honest, we probably have both watched The Dark Knight 1,000 times.
Yes.
Batman Begins and Dark Knight Rises, maybe not as much, because I think, we'll get into The Dark Knight being kind of a masterpiece.
Yes.
But because of that reason, I'd watched them so many times, you have to kind of give yourself a buffer period of, okay, I don't want to ruin this for me. I want to still enjoy it. So I hadn't watched them in a while. Going back through, did you watch them in order?
Yes.
Okay, so I kind of watched them out of order on purpose. What were your thoughts when you went back through to it?
So it had been, when I went back and saw them, I've watched, The Dark Knight at least once a year, if not more, just because it is my all-time favorite movie. Like, you ask me my ranking of movies, that's number one.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, Up being number two. I know that's like a jump, but we're not talking about that right now.
But, you got the two faces of drama. You got the sad and
drama and Two-Face. No, he's not a villain in the first one, at least. So, which now I say that and I'm like, oh, my notes. Oh, because we ranked villains. We had talked about that, and I may have forgotten Two-Face, but that's not the point right now. So, rewatching it, The Dark Knight, of course, I'd seen that multiple times, but Batman Begins had been a long time since I've seen it, at least a couple years. So rewatching it after that period of time was really good, because I hadn't seen it in a while, and I was just, watching it and catching on to things and being like, oh yeah, that's right, that happened. Like the beginning to where it's not like most Batman movies, all of them pretty much start out in the action. The ones before it, at least, like the Tim Burton ones, the other guy that I can't think of his name that ruined the Batman series of Batman.
Joel Schumacher.
Joel Schumacher, yeah, with the bat nipples. Since he ruined those, but they always like start out immediately in the action. This started out with, you know, he's a criminal and like trying to figure out all this stuff. He's in a prison and he's fighting all these guys, and like, you know, his training begins, and then they kind of do origin story. So it's like in the middle of the origin story towards the end, because he's not part of the League of Shadows or anything, or training with them at least. And then he becomes Batman, but he, you know, starts out, he's in prison. This guy, I can't remember his name before you find out it's Ra's al Ghul.
Henri Ducard.
Henri Ducard, yeah, Ducard. So, which he's credited as, so he doesn't give it away.
Right.
But he, you know, then it goes back and tells him about the story of his parents and how he became afraid of bats, but they don't get to that later, that he uses it. So it was just, you know, it was really good to have that style. And then Dark Knight, of course, great. And then Dark Knight Rises, it had been longer since I've seen that. I think I've only seen it like twice, because, not to say I was disappointed at first, but I was like, this, you know, it was a good cap to the trilogy, but it just, the Dark Knight's so much better. Like I'm not gonna see that as many times as I will the Dark Knight. So it was like, you know, I'd watched it and I was like, good, they ended it. And then maybe seen it once or twice since, but it was just like, you know, I hadn't seen it in what seems like forever comparatively.
Yeah, I think The Dark Knight Rises, the third one, I think it loses rewatchability factor for two reasons. One, you can't understand Bane, and that's frustrating. And two, it's too long.
It is extremely long.
Nolan had so much success with The Dark Knight, and a lot of that is thanks to Heath Ledger's performance. I mean, the movie's great, don't get me wrong, but you know, Heath Ledger's Joker, if we're talking all-time acting roles, all-time villains, all-time whatever, you know, he'll be near the top of the list. I think Nolan got so much leeway because of that. He got to have more say. I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
But when I pulled up to watch Dark Knight Rises and it was 2 hours and 45 minutes, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. There's probably a little bit of fat we could have cut off of that. Maybe some kind of drawn out scenes that weren't necessary.
Yeah.
So I watched it, Dark Knight, then I watched Batman Begins, and then I watched Dark Knight Rises. And I realized I did that in the order of that I like them. Mm-hmm. I'm learning that, because I always thought, well, I think I like Dark Knight Rises better than Batman Begins, but I don't think that's true. The only thing that really hurts Batman Begins, in my opinion, Rachel Dawes. You know, we're going to kind of get into which one was the better one. We can kind of do that now.
Yeah.
Katie Holmes was Rachel Dawes in Batman Begins, the first one. Maggie Gyllenhaal, Rachel Dawes in Dark Knight. I don't know if I love either one of them. I think they did okay, but I think
felt the same way.
It's very necessary that they made that change. It's kind of funny. The reason Katie Holmes had to the reason she couldn't reprise her role was because she was contractually obligated to make Mad Money with Queen Latifah and Diane Keaton. So she couldn't be in the sequel.
I didn't know that, but that makes it hilarious.
But how great is that? You can't be in one of the best movies of all time because you're in Mad Money. Okay.
Yeah.
That's too bad. No offense to Mad Money fans. But I think it was a blessing in disguise, because imagine Katie Holmes, that saccharine, sweet, just kind of, you know, Bruce, like her cutesy kind of wafy, weak portrayal.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been as heavy what happens to that character. Gyllenhaal comes in and she's kind of commanding. She's kind of telling Harvey what's what. She's in the courtroom, and we really see her in her element. We see her have a much more conflicting relationship with Bruce Wayne as opposed to Katie Holmes. I don't know. No offense to Katie, but I think Gyllenhaal really knocked it out, and we needed that for what happens to the character. That's what the stakes were raised that much higher, and we're all lucky that that's how it ended up.
Yeah, which I feel like of all the love interests, I feel like Maggie Gyllenhaal would have been the best. Like, I feel the Catwoman romance in the third one was just kind of shoehorned in because they're like, Rachel Dawes is gone. You've got Catwoman who just kind of literally they have a relationship like in the last like hour of the movie, because before that it was Talia al Ghul, aka whatever, Miranda Tate. I was like Meredith something. It was an M, but Miranda Tate. So yeah, of course there had to be another secret, which I feel like that makes it lose rewatchability for the third one, because I know we had talked about it. The worst scene I think we talked about, like your least favorite scene. Mine was Talia al Ghul's death.
Dude, so did you see I put that on Instagram?
No.
I put it on Instagram because we were rewatching these leading up to it, and I was like, I totally forgot about it's the worst death scene of all time.
Like, oh yeah.
It's the worst. It's so bad.
Just, my father's work is complete.
What are you doing, man? That is terrible.
I did not see that post that you did, but I 100% agree with it, and that's why that's the worst scene for me. It's just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
So, just but yeah. So Maggie Gyllenhaal is better than Katie Holmes, I think. But I do want to say that Katie Holmes. So favorite line. Go ahead and what do you think? Do you have a favorite line? Like, what's your of the whole series?
Oh, the whole series, my favorite line?
Yeah.
Wow, man, that's really hard. I know we talked about best quote.
Or that,
But my what I'm, quote, line, whatever, like an absolute favorite, because I've got a group of them, and there's a lot of heavy hitters. Yeah. I think my favorite one, because I think it to myself a lot, is Alfred, Michael Caine. Some men just want to see the world burn.
Yeah.
Or some men just want to watch the world burn. I harken back on that from time to time. I really like that one. And when the chips are down, we'll see how loyal a hungry dog really is. Like, that's a great line from Heath Ledger's Joker. Those are probably my top two. I know there's bigger, more iconic ones. I know Joker had a bunch of them, but that's probably my favorite one. And then the Alfred one. What about you?
So I like that both of yours are from Dark Knight, because of course mine would be the most iconic line ever spoken, I feel, in any type of movie is, why so serious? Just because it plays out, because it's part of his quote origin story. But just how he delivers it sometimes, and he's just like, why so serious? That's my best impersonation. So we'll see if that comes out on the other side. But the other one that I've thought about getting it, like, I don't have any tattoos, but if I did have a tattoo, it would be the quote for Rachel Dawes from the first one, played by Katie Holmes, that says, "It's not who you are underneath, but what you do that defines you." Because that's the whole thing about Batman. Like, he's Bruce Wayne under there. It doesn't really matter who it is. It's just what he's doing by stopping crime and doing all this stuff and getting, not vengeance, not revenge, but he is, but like he's making up for everything that he lost by making sure others don't. And I think that that's very important when it comes to Batman.
You would really consider getting that tattooed? Because I know you're not a tattoo guy. That would be a big deal.
Yeah. I thought about that with like a bat symbol around it, and then just being like, boom, but I have no idea where I would get it. But they say that if you think about a tattoo for like 7 years, then you should probably get it, because like, if you like that idea, because it's going to be on your body for the rest of your life. And some
is it a real saying? Do people say that?
Somebody said it, I'm sure.
Okay.
So
how some people say that,
you know how I made up that quote that if you have something and think about it 7 years, some arbitrary number, but yeah, I would do something like that. And that's something that just stuck with me since like Batman Begins. So
all right, so let's pick back up where we were. There's been a noticeable cut. I'm sure there was some technical difficulty. Apparently computers need space in order to save files.
Who knew?
Now, this is new to me. So we're going to go ahead and do part 2. We're going to continue our bonus feature, a deep dive into the Dark Knight trilogy. We had just got done talking about, Rachel Dawes, and you might get a tattoo, and you're making up phrases to justify your life-altering decisions. And, and we're talking about Dark Knight trilogy. So, Gadget. Now,
Badgets.
We can hate. You kind of mentioned it before. Tim Burton had kicked off kind of the feature film Batman here in the late 80s, early 90s. Joel Schumacher then took it to its greatest height of terribleness.
Batman Forever. Well, I love Batman Forever, though. It's 95. I just, so good, though. But
Batman Forever is good. And I will contend that Batman and Robin's fine, too, because I was 9 when it came out. Watching it, I won't rewatch it, but all the punning from Arnold as Mr. Freeze was terrible.
Let's kick some ice.
Hey, everybody, chill. I like Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy. She was very campy, but it was probably my first crush. People don't talk about it. Everybody always mentions Winnie Cooper from Wonder Years or the Pink Ranger from Power Rangers.
Kimmy.
Uma Thurman in 97 with the red.
Oh, yeah.
Big fan.
That was, Dr. Pamela Isley was the technical name.
Correct.
But yeah, she became Poison Ivy and was very, I would get poisoned by that kid.
The reason we're even talking about that direct is there were some awesome gadgets. I'm not going to lie. The rubber suits were a little weird. You mentioned the bat nips, but there were some cool gadgets, some really cool batarangs and grapple hooks and all this stuff. Now, the Dark Knight trilogy, kind of a grittier, more rooted in reality, still had some cool stuff. So what were your thoughts? What were some of your favorites?
So I say gadget, but it is more of a vehicle rather, but the bat pod that stems from the tumbler, and it just how it, like, when you first saw that, you're like, oh my god, like, this tank has a motorcycle. Which, I mean, that's a weird thing to say, but like when it happened,
that sounds like a foreigner trying to learn English.
Tank has a motorcycle.
Tank has a motorcycle. You're like, you're trying.
Yeah, but it's like, it was so cool, and it has the guns that it took from the tumbler, and was really, really awesome. And the fact that I say this with an ounce of
with love in your heart,
not humility, but like realization that movies aren't real. Love in my heart, but movies aren't real. But I feel like this is one of the most realistic movie series that are superhero based, like, out there, because he doesn't have powers. It actually has like real world stuff that's happening, and somebody could be a crazy maniac and like take over a city, not in so much as Bane, but like the way the Joker did. I feel like that could actually happen, and that's why I love The Dark Knight so much, is because it's like something that could actually happen, and that's why it's kind of rooted in reality, like you said. But of course, the fall, that when the Joker throws Rachel Dawes out the window and they fall like 20 stories, 30 stories, and don't really parachute much, but land on a car like, are you okay? So so that part wasn't as much real, but like the gadgets and everything like that are based on like military technology. So I feel like I don't know much about it, but I feel like it seems real and more realistic than just all the crazy stuff from all the other superhero movies and Batman movies.
Yeah, the reality of the series, the comic bookiness or whatever is kind of hidden. When you start to kind of pull a thread at the plot a little bit, you can find that, like, the Joker was able to rig an entire hospital with explosives. He was able to get the canteens or the canisters or whatever of explosives on the big barges, the ships or whatever. It's like, okay, a lot of this would have had to have gone right for this to have happened, but there's no fun going down that road. So just enjoy it. The Bat Gadget I probably enjoyed the most. The Bat Pod was cool. I really liked it. Again, we're talking Dark Knight here. There weren't a ton of gadgets in Batman Begins other than him kind of assembling the suit. I like him kind of hand sawing or and polishing the batarangs or the bat stars or whatever. But the gauntlet, that he gets the Joker with, where they kind of
with the blades that shoot out.
That
you want to know how I got these scars? No, but I know how you got these.
Another good quote.
Yeah, right.
I really enjoyed that. Now, this is something normally with the movie reviews we've done so far, we go, "Hey, man, what are you doing here?" Now, we do that for, esteemed actors of acclaim that maybe they've been nominated for an Oscar or they're known for their better dramatic work and they're in kind of a crappier movie than they normally are. This version is, "Hey, what you doing?" This is somebody who's known for maybe not being in the best stuff, and they just happened upon being in a really good movie. Yeah. "Hey, man, what you doing here?" Dark Knight, Anthony Michael Hall.
Oh, yeah.
He's the TV reporter.
Yeah, and then he ends up getting killed. But it was like, when I was watching it again, I was like, wait, that looks like Anthony Michael Hall from freaking 16 Candles and all those other movies. I was like, oh my gosh, like I never really noticed it was him until like way later. But yeah.
Did you have another one?
I wasn't anticipating actually, because I was like, everyone should be in this movie. What was it?
There's one in Dark Knight Rises that I know.
That's when I was like, oh my gosh, it was him. It was it was the guy who played Daggett. What's his name? I can't remember. It's not him. Okay, who is it then?
When he goes to the doctor, and it's Thomas Lennon.
Oh yeah, and you're just like, what?
You're like, hey, what you doing? You're Lieutenant Dangle. What are you doing here, man? This is a serious movie.
Yeah, and he's like, well, we can go ahead and get those legs picked up, and you're like, what the heck? Like this isn't a comedy movie. Why are you in this?
Yeah. So we have, hey man, what are you doing? We have, hey, what you doing here?
Yeah.
And then our third is, hey, look who it is. Maybe somebody that has become a bigger star now, but this was an earlier role that they weren't necessarily known for. We do have one of those.
In this?
Yeah. Hey, look who it is. King Joffrey.
Oh yeah, from the first. Yeah, he was Joffrey Baratheon, the first of his name, but he was the kid in on the windowsill, or not the windowsill, the fire escape. He's like, they're always fighting. They say that you're a bad guy, or nobody believes me at school or whatever it is, and then he tosses them the telescope or whatever it is, and it's like, how does it have a bat symbol to where they're going to know it's Batman's? I don't really understand how they're going to know that, but that's okay. I mean, that was kind of
they could be like, oh, so your dad's in the military? Cool.
Yeah.
That's not that
exactly. This is Batman's. Get him. It's like, oh, okay.
Get him.
Get him.
Okay, so this will be the easiest thing we've probably done, ranking the villains of the trilogy. Now, depending on who you think is a villain, there's the main one, and there's some side ones and some kind of lesser ones, but they're still bad or whatever. What you got?
Number one, Talia al Ghul. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, the Joker, because
it's not even a contest.
Yeah. Number two would be Two-Face, though, just because, not because it was in the Dark Knight, but because the whole point of that movie was to take this white knight and bring him down to our level. And that's exactly what the Joker did. And if you ever read any of the comics or anything, I recommend Batman Long Halloween, because this is what it's pulled from, is that storyline, because it's something similar. It doesn't necessarily have the Joker to do with it. It's actually the mob that has everything to do with bringing down Two-Face, or Harvey Dent in that sense. Number three, Bane, of course, because he's, just really good. Four, I put Ra's al Ghul, and Scarecrow is number five. So I had to alter my list during the commercial break, because I wanted to make sure that I put Two-Face in there, since I mentioned that earlier. And I was like, oh shoot.
Yeah. Where do you
about you?
Where do you put Talia al Ghul? Do you count her as a villain? Do you count Catwoman as a villain?
Actually, I had Catwoman as 5.
You just did the top 5?
Yeah, like a top 5.
That's
but
the other
I
podcast,
guess,
man.
Right? Oh shoot, copyright. No, but it's yours. Right. It's yours. It's okay.
Get him.
Get him. So Catwoman, she was a villain briefly, I guess you could say, whereas Talia was kind of a villain briefly, because it's like, well, she was the villain the whole time, but then like one of those last minute reveals, and then she dies, and it's like, oh, okay. But I didn't include any of the mob or mafia or anything like that because I think that's always an underlying bad guy, but it's not like, you have Carmine Falcone. In the first one,
I thought he was really good. Tom Wilkinson
is really good
villain.
In general. So he was good. I guess honorable mention would be what he was, because the mob is just like there. And Eric Roberts' character, I can't remember his name, like
Maroney.
The mob family. Oh yeah, Salvador Maroni. But they're actually, those two, Carmine Falcone and Salvador Maroni, are the two main bad guys of Batman Long Halloween. I plugged it earlier. Try it out. But anyway, Jeff Loeb is the author. Anyway, sorry. So yeah, those are my top guys. You agree with my list? You have some alterations?
I just don't get why people think the Joker was so great. I mean, just a run of the mill. Heath Ledger totally phoned it in.
Right? Like,
no,
I'm still living off my Knight's Tale money. I don't need this gig.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing we can say that hasn't been said over the past 13 years or whatever that movie's been out. It was an iconic performance. It was amazing. I rank Bane a little higher. I didn't like Two-Face because he yelled a lot.
Yeah. Right down.
Right down. Like, God, man. It's like, it's not quite a jump scare, but it's right there,
Yeah, when the part where he's laying in bed and he's like, say the name, Gordon. And like, okay.
Could you calm down, dude? I thought if Bane could have been understood a little better throughout because there are scenes where you can understand him. I was born in it, or whatever. Like, you can make that out. But they're like, especially when they're on the football field and he's like,
yeah.
I'm like, if that were a little better, because to see Batman dominated physically and kind of outsmarted as well. If you take a look at the Rogues Gallery, throughout the comics and the graphic novels and the movies, Bane, it's funny because he was such a punchline, dumb henchman in Batman and Robin, the Schumacher films. But he was such a great character, and I thought it was really good the way they did it. And it's impressive, give Nolan credit, or whoever shot it, I'm not sure who his cinematographer was, to take Tom Hardy, 5'9", and make him look like he's this big, huge, hulking guy. Now, he had buffed up a bit, but the way they shot him, they made him look like he was like 8 feet tall.
Yeah, because I think, what's his name? Oh my God, Batman. Why am I blanking? Actor's name? Christian Bale. He's like 6'1", and Bane
he's tall.
Is 5'9", and it's like, because I looked that up, I'm like, is he really that big? I'm like, oh shoot, like he's kind of tiny.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like to make him like that.
Joker is 1, Bane is 2. They're kind of both on their own tier. And then below that, I would probably put Two-Face. Ra's al Ghul was okay. I thought it was kind of hokey. I thought Batman Begins began really well, telling the origin story, and then the third act is all comic booky to me.
Yeah,
it looks real fake when you see the city. I'm like, this looks so CGI. It's kind of taking me out of it.
Yeah.
If we don't stop it, it's going to vaporize the whole water supply. I'm like, okay. I felt like it was 60s Batman. I'm like, okay.
I can see that. Yeah.
We have to stop it before it gets to the center. I'm like, okay, all right.
Even though it's traveling really quickly, it's still not here yet. Even though we can see it right there on the horizon, it should be here by now. Yeah. So it's not that big of a city, but that's okay.
But the villains were good. People hated on Catwoman because I think they just don't like Anne Hathaway, and I understand not liking an actor for no reason. But I thought she was fine. She kind of did the sly femme fatale kind of thing. They gave her some depth, which if we're talking female characters, and especially in this genre of movie, they usually don't get that level of depth. But we learn about her having a kind of a darker past. She has this partner she works with, and she's trying to make amends. And they didn't have to. She could have just been in this hot black suit, and that's it. So yeah, those are my villains.
Yeah.
let's wrap up with talking about if we were to make a fourth. I thought long and hard about this, and I still don't know that I love what I came up with. So why don't you go, and we'll see how it ends up.
So I would do, it'd be two villains, and it would be Jervis Tetch, who is the Mad Hatter.
Okay.
So he's a little less known.
Yeah.
Which all of his stuff is based on like Alice in Wonderland and that whole thing through the Looking Glass. But the reason I do this is the opposite villain would be Edward Nygma, aka the Riddler. So they would be both villains, but they would be trying to compete against each other because the Mad Hatter is all about mind control, and the Riddler is all about being smarter than everyone else. So both of them have to do with, intelligence or like controlling intelligence versus being better at, smarter than people and controlling them that way. And I don't know exactly how, like what the story would be, but that'd be my thought. Like, they both, like, it's a rival company, and one's like, we're smarter than you, and the other one's like, well, I can control people. And so it would be like, something to do with mind and all that other stuff. And then because of the reveal that they gave at the end with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, his name's Robin, which it's kind of like, oh, that's weird. Right. It kind of felt shoehorned in, but if they're going to include that, you might have Robin or Nightwing, like him because Batman technically died at the end of it. So if you had to, and Christian Bale couldn't do it, or they're continuing with that, it could be Nightwing, which is what Robin becomes later, or even way down the line, Red Robin, not the restaurant, but his name was Red Robin years later. So I almost did that, but I let you do it. So that would be my what I would think of when it comes to the fourth one. So
you were in the middle of that, and I realized you should have gone second because that's so much better than what I have, which I don't have much.
Poison Ivy.
So I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Each movie has a theme. Batman Begins is about fear. It's very fear based. That the Scarecrow has the gas mask or whatever, and it causes fear and kind of leads to panic. Dark Knight is chaos, kind of upending the natural order of things.
Yeah.
And then Dark Knight Rises, the third one, is pain. Those are the overarching themes of the three: fear, chaos, and pain. So you have Mad Hatter, you've got the Riddler, you've got maybe Batman has a sidekick now, or maybe becomes the main hero. What would be your theme of your fourth installment?
Yeah. I think honestly, like with what I was saying, it would be that just because you have intelligence, like knowledge is power is like a thing, yes, but at the same time, just because you're well versed on a topic doesn't mean people will believe you. And I think the climate that we're in right now, I think at each point with each Batman movie, it kind of was speaking a little bit. It's not, I don't want to say it's like, oh, it's political, but like it's speaking a little bit to that. And I think the world that, the fact that people can't listen to different things going on in the world and having common sense, I think that maybe it's like common sense isn't so common. And so, stupidity leads to destruction or something like that. I can't really quantify it to like a few words like fear, pain, and all that, but like dumbness kills. I don't know, something along those lines.
Okay, I like that. When I was thinking about what I would do for my fourth, I was thinking revenge, but then I thought that's kind of his whole story. The parents are killed and the whole origin or there. It's kind of all revenge.
Yeah.
So then I thought, let's go anger. If we're going to bring him back, something has to happen to Selena Kyle. It shows that they kind of ride off into the sunset. So yeah, I definitely want the Riddler. And well, here's the other thing. I was thinking about it. I was like, I think Riddler and Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, would be really cool. And I was like, oh, that's because that's what the Batman's about to do.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, that's Paul Dano's the Riddler and Colin Farrell plays Cobblepot. That's just right. Because I think it would be difficult to do Poison Ivy or Mr. Freeze being rooted in this gritty realism of the Dark Knight trilogy. It would be difficult to be like, to have a Poison Ivy or a Mr. Freeze. Now you're getting into kind of real fantasy land. Whereas Riddler, you know, you've got the Zodiac Killer. Cobblepot can be a real kind of like a Harvey Dent, kind of a high-ranking official or a politician, or just a rich socialite that has a lot of power, a mobster kind, like a kingpin. But I think anger would be good. I think something happens to Selena Kyle. Bruce goes into a rage. Robin kind of has to be there for him to kind of, you know, navigate so he doesn't go too crazy. But anger, I think, would be a good one. I think you get Cobblepot and Nigma to kind of outsmart him. Like, they've left, and then now they've kind of taken over Gotham, and he's got to go fix it.
I was gonna say, since you're talking about like something happens to Selena and anger or everything like that, you could do. There's some like deep cuts like that were like later villains, like Firefly, who's a pyromaniac and could, you know, burn stuff down, and then there's Victor Zsasz, who's literally a serial killer who like marks his victims on his skin with like notches and everything like that. So I mean, you could have, you know, incorporate that to where it's like it could be the way that Scarecrow was in the first one, that he was just, you know, a pawn. You could have like a pawn like Firefly, like who sets stuff on fire for Cobblepot, and then you could have like, you know, there was never a Sinister Six for Batman. So there was, of course, you know, the Justice League that had the Legion of Doom, but there was never just like a thing that, you know, one Spider-Man, the singular person, has the Sinister Six, whereas Batman has his rogue gallery, but they never really teamed up a lot.
Right.
Except in Batman Long Halloween, which you should read. So anyway.
Is that a sponsor?
I guess it is now. Yeah. But yeah, so it's I think that you're on the right track with like the anger being a good theme for that last one. Because so you could bring him to vengeance and then not at the end. But go ahead.
Right. If you could change anything about the trilogy, what would you change? You can say the death scene if you want.
I thought about it. I was going to say though, like, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's a pretty good series. The only thing maybe, I mean, we've already touched on it a little bit, but trimming down, I would like Dark Knight Rises to have been trimmed down, but Dark Knight maybe added a little more, just because I love that movie, that to have like more stuff to it.
Right.
Or maybe it's already perfect. I don't know. But like,
I get that.
Know, the way the Joker was, like, you just want more.
It's kind of like Silence of the Lambs. You know, Hannibal Lecter is this insane character, and you just want more, and you realize, oh, he's only on screen for like 19 minutes of over maybe 2.5 hour long movie. You know, Joker only has maybe 4 or 5 scenes throughout the whole thing, but he commands such a presence. You're like, oh, I would love just more.
Yeah.
You know, but that's the draw. You know, they always leave you wanting more when it's that good of a performance.
Just because every scene he's in is just the best. Just even the intro when he's just like, you don't know it's him, and then he's like, I killed a bus driver, and then he's talking to the guy. He's like, you know what they'll do to you? You know who this is? They'll kill you. He's like, you know what doesn't kill you makes you stranger. And that's when the big reveal, and you're like, it was him. So
yeah.
But yeah, it's just I could talk about this for hours. Just dissecting every scene because it's so good. Just Dark Knight. You don't have to do the other two.
Sure. Yeah. If I had to change one thing, and we'll wrap up, it would be the ending of the entire trilogy.
Like just the last scene of the last movie, or the last movie in general?
The second to last scene of Dark Knight Rises, because the last scene of Dark Knight Rises is Robin ascending in the Batcave.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I'm cool with that. The scene right before, I've had a problem with since it came out in 2012.
In the cafe?
Yep.
Oh, we've talked about this, but go ahead. Yeah, yep. I know exactly where you're going.
Earlier in the movie, Alfred says, I would just love to be at this little cafe in Italy or wherever, and I just want to look over and just see you. And I know that you've given up this whole Batman thing and that you're happy and healthy, and like, we don't need to talk. I'll just look over. I'll know that you're good. We'll share a little nod, and we'll be good. We don't even need to talk. And I was like, that's cool. Well, then at the very end of the movie, when Bruce leaves Gotham, goes away, with Selena Kyle, Catwoman, and they're sitting in the cafe. The camera follows Alfred as he walks through the little cafe outside. He sits down, gets his little wine or whatever, and then he kind of looks over and he just kind of smiles and gives a nod. And then the camera shows Bruce with Selena.
Yeah.
And I hated that so much. I'm like, no, the movie would have been so much stronger if it would have ended with Alfred just kind of looks over and smirks, does a little nod, and then blackout, Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
So much stronger. Could have ended. I just feel like a gymnast with a 10 routine just kind of stuttered on the landing a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of a small grudge, though, for such a great trilogy.
Because they had alluded to it so much beforehand. It's like, who fixed the autopilot? Oh, it was Bruce Wayne. That was the user who fixed it. And then literally it could have ended on that. And then it's like, there's enough information for you to make your own assumptions that, yeah, he made it. But then they're just like, you're right. It's just like, here, he did.
Here he is. He's here. He's alive. Like, we get it. It could have been a lot better.
Yeah.
All right,
and
buddy.
Then he was with Rachel. Rachel.
Hopefully these two pieces will work together. We'll do some editing magic. We'll come out with some new release reviews soon. We're going to watch Suicide Squad. We're going to watch Green Knight. And there's a couple others that we'll talk about too, but that's a bonus feature. The first one doing the Dark Knight trilogy. We'll see you guys next time. Love you, buddy.
Love you too, bud.